Hi everyone, I'm Maria DeSimone, a professional astrologer and the creator of InsightfulAstrology.com. Welcome to Bite-Sized Astrology, a unique cooking show where I share my love of food, all while teaching you astrology in bite-sized pieces. Today, I'm going to tell you all about the houses in a horoscope. What does it mean to have a planet in a house? What are these houses all about anyway? Today, I'll explain it all. And in the meantime, I will prepare a scrumptious recipe for shrimp scampi. As a matter of fact, it's one of my most famous recipes. It's called Burn the House Down Shrimp Scampi. There's a story behind it, which I'll get to later on. But first, let's get started with the recipe, and let me tell you all about the houses in a birth chart. We're going to start with about a couple of tablespoons of olive oil, extra virgin olive oil in a saute pan. And we're going to start this off on low heat. If you've never heard of the houses in a horoscope, you need to create your free birth chart to understand what I'm talking about. Every horoscope comes in a circle. It's a wheel, and it's divided into 12 neat slices. Each one of these slices is known as a house, and the house represents the arena of life where an energy is manifesting. It is the where. That's what you need to remember about houses. There are 12 of them, and we all have planets scattered in various houses. Not all of us will have every planet in the same house. As a matter of fact, we will all have unique house placements. In addition to that, there are only 10 planets, but there are 12 houses. Yes, I know the sun and the moon are luminaries, but as astrologers, we simplify and we call them planets. And we know astronomers have demoted Pluto, but no astrologer in the world agrees Pluto very much is a planet, in our opinion. So these 10 planets will be scattered around the 12 houses somewhere, illustrating a different life emphasis for all of you, depending on the energy of that planet. The first house begins with a point called the Ascendant, or rising sign. Throw some garlic in here, about 3 cloves of garlic, while I'm telling you about the Ascendant. The Ascendant is going to be the cover of your book. It is how you come across to others, and whatever sign is rising or on the Ascendant will really tell you a lot about your personality projection to the world. But then we get into the first house, thanks to the Ascendant. It begins the birth chart, and it's at the 9 o'clock position of a horoscope wheel. And remember, if you've never seen your birth chart, go to my website and create your free copy. Everyone should see what their birth chart looks like. We're going to saute this for about a minute, and then we're going to add 3 tablespoons or so of diced shallots to this. So this first house is all about the personality, the self, the identity, your physical appearance. Planets in the first house of your horoscope will add to the story of how you portray yourself, how you come across to others, and what is important in the formation of your identity. As we move along the houses, the second house is very much concerned with your talents and abilities, your values, your resources. The second house is a money house, and it's all about the income that you could earn. It illustrates your income potential. It is where you look to find out what kinds of talents you have and what ways you have of earning money. But this is deeper than just money. This is your inner value, your self-worth. We call the second house the self-worth profile. So knowing about the planets here, or the sign on the cusp, the beginning of your second house, will tell you a lot about your self-worth, your values, your income potential. And it's also the house of possessions. What's mine? Everything that you like to own is illustrated in that second house. We're getting this nice and translucent. You don't want to burn the garlic, so keep an eye on it. As we saute this up, I'm getting ready to put some white wine. But first, I want to give it a little bit of salt. Not too much. A little bit of pepper. And smells so good. Oh, if you could smell this. This is a really delicious recipe, worth your time and effort to make, trust me. Take some dry white wine, good white wine that you would drink right from the glass, and you want to add about 1/4 to 1/2 cup right here in your saute pan, and then raise this heat, and you're going to let this wine evaporate as much as possible. It'll take a couple of minutes, and what you're doing now is condensing the flavors, and this is going to become a very special herb butter that we're going to use for our shrimp scampi. Wait until you see it. It's amazing. So let's move on with the houses in a horoscope while I'm waiting for this to evaporate. The third house in your birth chart will tell you all about communication, how you think, how you learn, how you communicate with your environment, how you experience your environment. This also rules your neighborhood. So it has to do with your experiences in your immediate surroundings. The third house also rules your siblings. And you can find out a lot about your siblings by studying your third house or any planets in the third house. Communication, though, is the key focus of the third house. Your early learning experiences, grammar school, early school, this is third house, matters. The third house will tell you so much about how you process your environment. I cannot emphasize enough how important the third house is when it comes to understanding how a person will communicate, how a person will think and learn, because the third house happens to correspond to the planet Mercury. All of these houses correspond to a planet, and this language, this astrological language, begins to make so much more sense once you understand the foundation of the planets, the signs, and the houses. The third house happens to correspond with Mercury, which is very intellectual. The second house corresponds to Venus, which is the planet of money and love. But in the second house, we're concerned with money and values. And the first house corresponds to Mars, which is all about how you energize, what motivates you. And these houses also correspond not only to the planets, but to signs. So that first house would correspond to Aries. That second house corresponds to Taurus. And the third house would correspond to Gemini. This is starting to evaporate, but it needs to go a little bit more. Let's talk about the fourth house. The fourth house is all about your roots, your home and family life. It corresponds to the sign Cancer and to the moon. The fourth house is also an angle. Like the Ascendant, the beginning of the first house, we come to the bottom, and the fourth house is called the nadir or the IC, which means imum coeli in Latin, underneath the heavens. And the fourth house will tell you everything about what you need to feel nurtured in your home environment. It tells you about your traditions, your roots. It's part of your soul. It corresponds to the end of life as well, the end of matters. This is exactly where I want it to be. It's evaporated just enough, and now what I need to do is add a little bit of lemon juice. Add about a lemon's worth of lemon juice to this. I'm just going to let that evaporate a little more. And the fourth house, when you have planets in the fourth house, it would emphasize a great need for family activities, for domestic related activities. it will tell you more about how you need to be nurtured, what it is that provides that nest for you, depending on what planet is in the 4th house, or planets, if there are more than one. So this is an important house as well, because the 4th house corresponds to your early home life and your mother. You can find out a lot about your mother, your family of origin, as well as the family that you create will be explained by the 4th house. This is finished. We're going to shut the heat off now. What I'm going to do is put this in a small bowl and let it cool. Very hot. You see how that looks? It is the basis of this delicious shrimp scampi recipe. The foundation right here. And guess what? That's what the 4th house is. It's your foundation. Without a strong foundation, everything else crumbles. And the same thing goes with cooking recipes that are in depth. You need to have a strong foundation, the best ingredients, and patience when it comes to cooking. So I'm going to let this cool off. And while I'm letting this cool off, I'm going to get together the rest of the herb butter. And then I'm going to show you how you roll this up into a butter log. And we will begin to assemble our shrimp scampi. So once this shallot, garlic, wine, lemon mixture has cooled off just a little bit, you're going to add it to a full stick of unsalted butter. And then make sure that butter is softened to room temperature. Then you want to add a nice handful of chopped parsley. You're basically making a gourmet herb butter here. And this is really soft and mushy right now. But what you're going to do is mix this, put it in a piece of saran wrap, and refrigerate it for about an hour to 2 hours, and it will firm up and become this gorgeous, delicious, flavorful masterpiece. So you take the mix and just roll it right up into saran wrap, and then you want to tighten the edges, and you put this right into the refrigerator for at least an hour, up to, really you can leave it, do it the night before if you want to, and it will be yummy. And while I am deveining a couple of shrimp and preparing them for the scampi, let me start talking about the 5th house. The 5th house is all about pleasure and play, because now we're talking about the house that rules recreation and fun and sex and carefree self-expression. This is your hobbies. This is what makes you happy, what gives you joy. That's what the 5th house is all about. The 5th house also rules children, and it corresponds to Leo and the sun. And it's absolutely a house where everything happy happens in your life. The 6th house is where you go to work. This house also corresponds to Mercury, but Virgo is the sign that it has the domain of, rather than the 3rd house, which would be Gemini. Both the 3rd and the 6th are corresponding to Mercury, but in different ways. The 6th house is more analytical, efficient. This is getting the job done, taking care of the details in your life. Your health is also here. Matters of well-being are here. And this is the area of your chart that you will learn about your daily routine and what you do to focus and to become so efficient. And then we get to the 7th house, which is another angle of the chart. The ascendant is on the 1st house cusp. The descendant is opposite. It's on the 7th house cusp. The descendant is a critical point in your horoscope, as are all the angles. But the descendant is all about partnership. Study the sign on your descendant, because it will tell you so much about the type of partner you attract to you and the type of partner that you are naturally attracted to. So the 7th house, any planets in it, will tell more of that story. In addition, the 7th house is all about your committed partnerships. whether your spouse, partner, or a business relationship. Oddly enough, the 7th house rules your open enemies as well. These would be enemies that you know you have, that are out there. And it's all about relationship when you're talking about the 7th house. The 1st house is me. The 7th house is we. So understand that each house has an opposite house, and this becomes an axis. And the two will always be connected. They're polar opposites, but the opposites will complement one another. They each have what the other needs a little bit more of. You're going to want about 1.5 to 2 pounds of jumbo shrimp. And you can ask the guy at the fish store to devein them for you, to clean them, devein them, but you want to leave the tail on for your scampi. And I want to make sure that they are properly deveined. If you go down the middle, right here, if there's any vein, you're going to get it. And sometimes there's extra that the people at the fish store miss. So you want to double check. And then you take the other side of it and you do the same thing. You're going to clean this. You do not want to serve the people that you love dirty, veiny shrimp. That's just disgusting. And then you're going to take the shrimp. See where it curves? We're going to take this part and with a knife go inside, not all the way, about halfway through. And we're going to open that up. And it creates this butterfly look. And then you want to put it on a jelly roll pan that has some of that herb butter chopped up and spread on the bottom. And I'll just cut one more piece of shrimp to show you. This one actually does have a vein. I don't know if you could see it, but there it is. And we're going to get this. We're going to take our knife and slide right down across like this. And you can see the vein come right out. And I just pulled it right out of the shrimp. And you want to make sure that every piece of vein is gone. Like I said, do not serve veins to the people you love. I wouldn't serve veins to anyone, actually. And then we're going to take this side again, the curved side, and cut open just halfway, go down, and it creates a butterfly. And you're going to put the butterfly right there. And now I'm going to cut up some more of the herb butter that we prepared earlier and put it all around this scampi that we're making here. This butter is just amazing. And just take some pieces, randomly spread it around. It has a crunchy texture now. So when we get to the 8th house, and by the way, the 7th house will correspond to the sign Libra and also the planet Venus. Remember, Venus is love. And in this 7th house, it's relationships, partnerships, and that's what Libra is all about. The 8th house will correspond to Scorpio and the planet Pluto. The 8th house is the opposite of the 2nd house. So if the 2nd house is all about my resources, my talents, and my abilities, the 8th house would be your resources, the other person's talents and abilities. And this does rule your spouse's income. This rules all sorts of joint resources. Any kind of money that you would get from a source other than your own income is an 8th house matter. This includes mortgages, credit, inheritance, investments, royalties, you name it. If it doesn't come directly from your own earnings, you'll find it in the 8th house. It is the house of shared resources, and that means all shared resources. This is also the house of intimacy. So you'll find your sexual, intimate nature in the 8th house. This is not the carefree, playful sex that you have, the dating, affair sex. That would be 5th house. The 8th house is committed intimacy committed, partnership, sex. It's also the area of your chart that allows you to explore your deep psychology. Anything that's buried, anything that's hidden will be found in that 8th house. So we put the butter all over the place, and I want to now add some hot red pepper flakes, sparingly if you're not crazy about hot stuff, but a little more generous if you enjoy it. And then we're going to take some lemon juice and put it all around your shrimp. And then the last finishing touch is some more white wine. This is going to be delicious. Just sprinkle the white wine all over. And I've preheated the oven to 475 degrees. You put the rack on the lowest setting. And we're going to bake this for about 4 to 5 minutes. Keep an eye on it after 4 minutes. You want it to be opaque and crunchy, but you don't want to overcook your shrimp because they're not going to taste good. They're going to be tough. So you have to be very aware of the color, how it looks. So let's throw this in the oven, and while it's cooking, I'm going to finish telling you about the houses in the horoscope. So while I'm waiting for the shrimp to cook, let me tell you about the 9th house. This is the house that will correspond to Sagittarius and the planet Jupiter, and this is the house of vision and anything is possible. This is mind expansion, and it is connected to the 3rd house, which we correspond to the lower mind. We say the 9th house is the higher mind. This is the area of your chart that will rule higher education, university level education, or any kind of specialized learning or certification. This is also the area of your chart that will rule long distance traveling. The 3rd house is short trips, short traveling. The 9th house is traveling abroad, traveling overseas. It's also the house of religion and spirituality in the sense of exploring all different philosophies and schools of thought and cultures. And it is a very metaphysical house. The 9th house is concerned with morals and the law and your opinions. So the 3rd house could be, it's said to be where you would collect information. The 9th house is where you have integrated that information that you collected from the 3rd, and now you're ready to disperse it out into the world at large in some way. And that's why the 9th house also corresponds to things such as publishing, broadcasting, or advertising. Then we get to the 10th house, which is another angle of the chart. Very important angle too, because it rules the career sector. It's called the Midheaven, or the MC, medium coeli, which means the upper heavens, and it indicates your career status, your destiny, your calling in life. This is your reputation. Everything in the 10th house is about the legacy that you're going to leave, your status, your honors that you receive, your career path, not your job, your daily work, that's 6th house. Your career path, your professional status, that's the 10th house. The 11th house would be all about your hopes, wishes, and dreams. The 11th house corresponds to the planet Uranus and to the sign Aquarius. That 10th house, by the way, would correspond to Saturn and the sign Capricorn. But when we get to the 11th house, we are chasing those rainbows. We are going after what we want, our deepest, deepest desires. This is the area of your chart that rules your greatest hopes. It also rules all humanitarian concerns. It's the house of brotherhood, very humanitarian, very group-oriented, very goal-oriented. It's also the house of friendship. And the 11th house will tell you a lot about things that have to do with politics and also technology. Then we get to the 12th house, which is the last in this circle of the horoscope wheel. And the 12th house kind of brings you back home. It brings you back to the divine, to the source of all life. The 12th house corresponds to the sign Pisces and the planet Neptune. And the 12th house is the most hidden part of the chart. It is the part of the chart where other people don't really see this part of us very well, unless we consciously choose to reveal it. It is the shrimp is ready. Let me get back to the 12th house after I check on our shrimp. Our shrimp scampi has come out of the oven and it is perfect. It's the exact color that you want it to be. And you can see you have all the juices here now that we're going to spoon on. I'm going to transfer this into a nice serving platter while I finish talking to you about the 12th house. The 12th house is, again, the most spiritual because it takes you back to that divine source. It's also one of the most psychic houses. It is, all the water houses are very psychic. That would be the 4th house, the 8th house, and the 12th house. But the 12th house deals very much with dreams and premonitions, and it's quite aware of the invisible lines that are drawn. So you can really find out a lot about your dream life through that 12th house, your subconscious desires, what is beneath the your kind of level of awareness, your initial level of awareness. It's that next layer, that would be the 12th house underneath. It's a rich house, lots of imagination, plenty of ability for artistic creation with that 12th house. And now I want to tell you why this is called Burn the House Down Shrimp Scampi. When Christmas Eve, one year for Christmas Eve, it was actually the first year that my Nona was not with us. Her first Christmas since she had passed. I wanted to make that Christmas Eve very special for my family. So I invited everyone over to my house for Christmas Eve dinner, and I made this big Christmas Eve dinner with the traditional 7 fishes, which is something that Italian families do traditionally for Christmas Eve dinner. We cook all fish. And one of the dishes that I decided to prepare for the gobs of people that were over was shrimp scampi. So people were everywhere that night. And I got up off the table to go get some Christmas music because one of my uncles said, "Hey Maria, we want to hear some Christmas music." When I got up, all of a sudden, my sister-in-law Mary says, "Maria, is the oven supposed to be on fire?" And so I panicked. I ran into the kitchen, and the oven was in flames. I had the shrimp scampi in the oven. And, of course, I screamed. And then I said, "Kids, get out of the house! All kids, get out of the house!" And all of a sudden, the alarm goes off, and it was just a mess. Thank God for my level-headed Uncle Mike. It took the Capricorn of the family to put out the fire while I was busy running outside with the kids. And he put the fire out, and it turns out that the oven-proof dish that I put the shrimp scampi in wasn't oven-proof, and it cracked in half. And all of this delicious, buttery wine sauce went on the bottom of the oven and caused a fire. We were very lucky that it was limited to the oven and that my uncle put it out so quickly. But because of that, this became Burn the House Down Shrimp Scampi. Believe it or not, the shrimp scampi was intact. It was just the oven-proof dish that was completely ruined. And we took the shrimp scampi out, served it in a platter. Everyone, I don't know, there had to be 35 people, maybe more that night. They all said it was the best shrimp scampi they ever had in their life. So this is my famous Burn the House Down shrimp scampi recipe. And now you know you have to try it. We're going to finish it off with some fresh thyme. If you like fresh thyme, you don't have to put it if you don't want to, sprinkled on. And the only other thing I want to say about the houses is that they are very much elemental. The 1st house, the 5th house, and the 9th house are fire houses. So this is action and energy. The 2nd The 6th and the 10th are the earth houses. And these are the practical houses where the material world is easily expressed. Then you have the 3rd, the 7th, and the 11th, which is air. And this is the intellect. And finally, again, the 4th, the 8th, and the 12th would be the water houses. So I hope this tour of the houses was helpful to you as you begin to study more about your birth chart. This looks amazing. It is perfect. This is exactly what shrimp scampi should look like. And you can serve this over a bed of linguine, or you can serve it as is. It will be perfect either way. Take some, dunk it in the juice. Definitely. It looks perfect. And it tastes even better.